Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today to speak of an affliction that is as old as consciousness itself, yet one that our modern age treats with a peculiar brand of terror and misunderstanding. We call it depression. We treat it as a mechanical failure of the brain, a chemical misalignment, or a moral weakness to be scrubbed away with frantic activity and bright pharmacology. But I submit to you that depression is not a random malfunction. It is a profound, albeit painful, movement of the human soul. When a person falls into the dark waters of depression, our immediate cultural impulse is to fight it. We tell them to chin up, to look at the bright side, to exhaust themselves in work or distraction. We behave as if the darkness were an invading army that must be repelled at all costs. But this is a grave mistake. If I may offer you an image to hold in your minds, consider depression not as a monstrous predator, but as a woman dressed in black. If she appears at your front door, do not chide her, do not slam the door in her face, and do not pretend she is not there. Instead, invite her in. Offer her a seat at your hearth, sit down beside her, and listen to what she has to say. For she has come to deliver a message from the deep, uncharted territories of your own psyche. What is this message? In almost every instance, depression is the psyche's way of saying that the life we are currently living is no longer viable. It is an announcement that the conscious ego, the persona we present to the world, the ambitions we have chased, the masks we have worn, has reached a dead end. The energy, which I call the libido, has been withdrawn from the outer world. It refuses to animate our daily routines any longer. It has retreated, flowing backward into the dark, subconscious waters of the inner self. This looks like death to the outer observer. The depressed individual can barely lift their head from the pillow. The hobbies that once brought joy now seem hollow. The conversations of friends sound like meaningless chatter, and the future appears as an empty landscape. The conscious mind panics because the ego feels it is losing control. But we must ask ourselves, what is actually dying? It is not the individual, it is the outdated way of being. The ego has built a house that is too small for the expanding soul, and depression is the cracking of the foundation. It is the necessary collapse that precedes any true psychological rebirth. In our frantic pursuit of happiness, we have forgotten the value of the shadow. We live in a society that demands perpetual sunshine, constant productivity, and unceasing optimism. But nature does not operate this way. The tree needs the cold, quiet winter just as much as it needs the blazing summer sun. If a tree were forced to bloom continuously without rest, it would quickly wither and die. Depression is the winter of the soul. It is a forced period of introversion, a mandatory descent into the underworld. When the energy flows backward into the unconscious, it does not simply vanish. It goes down to activate the archetypes, the ancient blueprints of human experience that lie beneath our personal memories. In that darkness, the energy is seeking a new direction, a new myth to live by. It is searching for the pieces of yourself that you have neglected, abandoned, or repressed in your hurry to please the world. Perhaps you wanted to be an artist, but you became a banker to satisfy your father. Perhaps you have stifled your capacity for deep grief or your capacity for fierce anger, burying them beneath a polite smile. The woman in black comes to demand that you look at these buried treasures. She holds up a mirror to the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deem too ugly, too weak, or too dangerous to acknowledge. To heal from depression is not to return to the person you were before the darkness fell. That person is gone, and quite frankly, that person's inadequacy is what caused the collapse in the first place. True healing requires what I call individuation, the process of becoming the whole person you were always meant to be, integrating both the light and the dark. This requires an immense amount of courage. It is far easier to take a pill and pretend the darkness was a fluke than it is to sit with the despair and ask, what part of my life am I living that is a lie? It takes courage to admit that your marriage is hollow, that your career is a betrayal of your true talents, or that you have spent your life trying to win the approval of parents who are long dead. But if you find that courage, if you allow yourself to descend into the abyss without fighting the current, you will find that the water is not merely drowning you, it is baptizing you. In the deepest part of the darkness, you will find the hidden gold. You will discover a resilience you did not know you possessed, a depth of empathy for the suffering of others, and a renewed sense of purpose that is grounded in reality, not in superficial optimism. We must stop viewing psychological suffering as a disease to be cured. Suffering is a task. It is the friction necessary to strike a spark of true consciousness. The individual who has never known the dark night of the soul remains a child, a superficial creature skating on the thin ice of a borrowed life. It is only by going down into the dirt, into the messy, painful realities of our internal contradictions, that we grow deep roots. So, to anyone here who is currently hosting that lady in black, I say to you, do not despair of your despair. Do not hate your sadness, and do not let the well-meaning world shame you into wearing a false smile. Treat your depression with the reverence you would show to a strict, wise teacher. Be patient with the darkness. Let the old structures crumble, for they must fall if the new self is to rise. Trust the hidden wisdom of your own psyche, which knows exactly what it is doing, even when your conscious mind is completely blind. Look into the dark, listen to its whispers, and remember that the brightest stars are only visible when the night is at its deepest. Thank you.